Women rising up, we're the talk of the town. We're the artists, the actresses, the filmmakers too, meeting Venus. Yeah, we're coming through. Shine your light, let your voices be heard. We're spreading love with every single word, from the stage to the screen. We're making our mark, me and Venus, together we embark.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to welcome Tiffany Chan. She's a very famous digital creator and sex educator, has many fans around all the social media. And today we're having her live. How are you, Tiffany?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
It is our pleasure. First, before we discuss the recent news about you, which I received from your PR company, I want you to tell me a little bit about your journey about content creation and sex education. How did it start?
Oh my goodness. I think I've always been somewhat into the world of sex education in some form or another for as long as I can remember. I very much have been interested in how the human mind works, and
Yeah.
eroticism has always been a big part of my life. And like many others out there that started doing digital content creation, I started in 2020 during the pandemic, and I was
Yes.
working full time at the time as a digital or educational technologist for a Fortune 500 company, and I
Yes.
really wasn't happy. And
Uh-huh.
I made the leap when I started seeing my TikToks going viral, and people were asking questions about. I was wearing my day collar at the time because I'm in a 24/7 DS dynamic, and people started just asking so many questions that I started my podcast, and from there I decided to get my postdoctorate in sex education and human sexuality, and became a board certified sexologist and a certified holistic sex educator. So it kind of all went hand in hand in one way or another.
Great. Congratulations for the PhD, of course. I want to ask you right now, first, how can people find your podcast? On
So
which? Mhm.
my original podcast, The Submissive Next Door, which was running for about 3 years, is on all the major platforms. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, it's there. My latest one, which is Behind the Lens with Tiffany, and that is basically my content creation journey and a very deep dive into just the world of content creation from my perspective. It's currently only on Substack, but it will be out on Spotify in the next week or so.
Great, great. Yes, Substack is a very nice platform. I love it. I have a newsletter as well, more written. But I want to ask you right now, can people, beside listening to your podcast, can seek some private consultation with you?
They can. I do still have my private practice, and I have a very kind of small group of people that I tend to work with right now. So currently, I have 2 spots available. I usually take 10 clients a month. And right now, you can go to kippany.life, and that is my sex ed blog. And from there, if you're interested, you can fill out a coaching request form, and it gives you a lot of questions to basically answer about why you're seeking consultations and things like that. The biggest misconception I will say that people have is when they see that I'm a digital content creator, I'm an adult content creator on top of being a sexologist. When they go there, they think that, oh, if I sign up, it means something else. And I'm either a sex ed, consultation consultant for you, or
Yes.
I am the digital content creator. There's no crossing of those lines.
Yes, I've seen visited a lot of your press release, their website. You do very beautiful modeling as well, and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is very rich with your photos and content. But I want to ask you because we know these medium, social media, have a lot of censorship. And if you're talking about what they can call about sex or avant-garde subjects or personal, physical stuff, you can get censored easily. So tell me, how do you walk on this fine line?
Oh, that's a very good question. So
Mhm.
originally, when I had started back in 2020,
Yeah.
TikTok didn't have the same guidelines back then that they do
Uh-huh.
now.
Hmm.
Really, most of the social medias didn't. And it really came down to payment processors and how they affect a lot of what is allowed to be put out there and things like that. And so I had a sex ed TikTok for a very long time. And specifically, it was talking about kink ed. And the reason I really talked so heavily about that was because there's such a misconception behind people that identify as kinky or people that are in the DS dynamic or BDSM worlds. And there's so much psychology that goes behind it and talks deep discussions about consent, negotiation, vetting, and things that pretty much the normal public doesn't know about.
Yes.
And I started being able to do that there. And then I was getting hit with violations left,
Really?
right, center, like
Mm.
many other people out there.
Yes.
So I started to, that's one of the reasons I started my podcast originally and started my blog was to give people like a place to go to find the information out where it wasn't directly on social media and I could build it for myself without being censored. So
Yes.
that's at this point, that's kind of what I end up doing is I have my podcast, I have my writings and things like that. And I do now post videos on my Substack that talk more exclusively about answering these types of questions.
Mhm.
So I guess that's the long roundabout answer is I don't post as much on social media because it is so difficult when it
For
comes to
sure.
talking about sex.
For sure. And I know, of course, across the United States, we have different culture and different reception of such topic. But I want to ask you: do you think your work right now, like challenge a little bit of the social norms, and as well at the same time, you can empower other people as well to discover their identities, to be transparent about what do they like in their private lives?
I like to hope that I'm empowering people, if nothing else, giving them space to be themselves and giving them an opportunity to really dig deep into who they are and not feel ashamed. I spent most of my life feeling incredibly ashamed of the things I was into, the things I liked, even not even in terms of sex, but being a woman who wanted to dress kind of maybe not provocatively necessarily, but in a way that made me feel really good, in a way that made me feel beautiful for myself. And because sometimes that was a tight fitting corset or it was dressing up in fantasy outfits, and people would look at me like, what's wrong with you? Who are you dressing for? Why are you doing that? Are you wanting
Yes.
to attract, bad attention?
Hmm.
And it made me feel so icky inside about myself.
Hmm.
I wanted to, at some point in my 30s, I just stopped and went, you know what? I'm tired of this. This isn't a way to live. And talking to more people, finding out that they feel that same way, it was really sad and heartbreaking to me. So I was like, you know what? My doctorate is actually in educational leadership. I should be a leader in this. I want to be that person that steps outside the norm and makes it known that it's okay and you are normal and it's a beautiful thing to be yourself, regardless of what that means.
Hmm.
So that's what I hope I bring to the table in my own kind of way.
Yes. There is, of course, the censorship of the society of people around you. But what can you tell me about auto censorship when people start to auto censor themselves?
Um, I think in terms of we're always going to have censorship in one form
Hmm.
or another, and
Yes.
that's never going to go away. And there's some very good reasons to have it, of course. But I also think that we need to have a space where we don't have that censorship for those of us
Sure.
that don't want to be censored. I think it's important that we have an outlet to express ourselves. And maybe that isn't on social media necessarily, but there are other places, thankfully, that exist that give us that option.
Sure.
So I think instead of kind of fighting it tooth and nail, I think my approach has always been like, acknowledge that it's there. We're not going to, win the war per se, but we can at least have a space for ourselves where we can get out what we need and continue to fight the good fight in other positive ways, if that makes sense.
Sure. Um, do you think there are difference, regarding sex culture between the United States and Europe and Asia?
Absolutely, there is. My partner is actually originally he was born in Hong Kong. He went to school in London, and then he was raised in Canada, and then in college he moved here to the United States. So he has been around many different cultures, and he's very much a world traveler. In talking with him, and now that I'm becoming more of a world traveler myself, I just went to Japan. We have some trips coming up into Italy here in the next couple of years. And it's really interesting to see the different perspectives, because you can go to Germany or you can go to France, for example, and there are nude beaches, and having a topless woman on a billboard is practically nothing. Whereas here in the United States, you can't even, wear something that's, slightly revealing on Instagram without getting nailed with censorship violations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different world in how I think people view it in other places. I think here in the United States, depends on the community that you're in, but it seems like overall there's this idea of, we want to look at stuff that's sexy, but if you try and be sexy, that's like a no-no. It's almost this weird balancing act that the United States plays with itself internally, because maybe we all feel bad about it for some reason, and we shouldn't. Sex is a beautiful thing. I think many other cultures have a little bit of a better handle on that, and seeing it as a natural part of the human experience. And rather than it be something that is dirty and something bad that should be shoved down, it's almost celebrated. And then, of course, you have other cultures that are very much against that sort of thing entirely. Japan is a great example, where I noticed there was a lot of much more censorship than is here or anywhere else, but yet there is a very erotic sort of experience and erotic side to Japan on the flip side. So it's so interesting to learn about sexuality from multiple cultures around the world, because it's so different in how it's represented. I
Yes.
hope that was a long roundabout answer.
Yes, but I remember, of course, the Japanese animation and anime, and of course, you've been frequent to it since you've been in Japan, and Japan culture and how they express themselves as well. But I want to ask you, did you think of producing some audio visual content, not only a program on YouTube or Facebook, but a documentary or a web series, where you can have other specialists, conversing with you?
I definitely have. The last season of the Submissive Next Door was exactly that. I had
Uh-huh.
different professionals and things that would come on, sex educators, kink educators, erotic book authors, and many of them ended up becoming very close friends of mine. So
Uh-huh.
it was a lot of fun to have them there. And I did start putting out the video versions of that on my YouTube channel at the time. And then my YouTube channel was getting hit with violations. So
Really?
it
Mhm.
became very difficult for me to talk about things outside of it. It seems like audio, the censorship isn't as great. You can almost
Mhm.
do it, like Patreon is a great example. You
Yes.
can post, basically erotic porn, like audio porn, on Patreon. But if you were to do that in a visual format, you would get
Mhm.
nailed and immediately, you'd be banned. So I do a lot of audio stuff. And for my new podcast, I definitely have plans to have some old faces come back and say hello and talk about their most recent experiences, not just with censorship, but just as an adult content creator, what that feels like, how they're moving through it. So, yeah.
What is your favorite erotic or sexy thriller?
My favorite erotic or sexy thriller.
Yes. a movie, a television series. Do you remember the work of Zalman King, like Wild Orchid with Mickey Rourke, and I remember Lake Consequence with Joan Severance and Billy Zane, and also he did Red Shoe Diaries, if you remember this series as well.
I do. I definitely do. Um, I think my favorite in terms of video, my
Yeah.
absolute favorite, and I know it's super controversial, so please don't yuck my yum, please. I absolutely love the film The Secretary, and
Yes, I remember it. It was with Jim Spader, right?
it was, yes,
Yeah.
it's by far one of my favorites because it was
Uh-huh.
about a female that was just she didn't feel like she had any way out, and how through BDSM and a DS dynamic she really became empowered, and she
Hmm.
became this incredible powerhouse of a woman, and how their dynamic sort of blossomed. And unfortunately there's a lot about it that was not the greatest to represent the
Hmm.
community, but it was still one of my favorite films by far.
Yes. Do you think you like to write a film, maybe a short film or something like that in the future?
I would love the opportunity. I'm having a lot of fun right now writing erotic scripts and
Hmm.
doing voice acting for them.
Yes.
So that is something that's definitely in the back of my mind, to create like a more of a long form film rather than just, 15-20 minute thing.
Yes.
Um, and a lot of my books and things like that I write, the short stories and some of my longer pieces that are becoming novels right now, I would
Sure.
absolutely love someday to be able to write a film script for them. That'd be incredible.
Yes. And right now, any hopes, because we're approaching Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year, do you have certain hopes or projects you would like to share with us for the new year?
I definitely do. I'm always working on something.
Good.
I right now I have a new series that I'm writing, and it's going to be on the Ream app as well as on Substack and Patreon. And
Great.
it's a very new form of writing for me. It's a diary format. So it's going to
Yes.
be a diary format that talks about from 4 different perspectives of these 4 individuals that come together into a poly unit, and how each of their sexual experiences and relationships between each other are so vastly different. And it'll be written in the first person as if it's actually happened. And the
Yes.
reason I'm so passionate about it is because some of the experiences that I'm going to be writing about may or may not have existed in my personal life, and it gives me an outlet to also expand on those and make them into a bigger fantasy
Yes.
than the actual experience. So I'm
A-
excited about that.
And you will narrate it as well.
I will be narrating it, and I'm
Great.
working on finding a male actor to help me with narrating the male version as well.
Very good. This is great. Tiffany, I want to thank you very much for taking this time among your other work to come live with us. And I want to thank you as well and thank your PR company for sending such beautiful press releases about your work. And I wish you all the best and your family as well. And I hope when you have a new project to announce, feel free to come back and talk about it in our channel.
Definitely, I will. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a fantastic new year.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day and say hi to the family. Thank you
I
very much.
will. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.